Kenichi Yamada is a 35-year-old gaming addict who has spent years mastering every challenge his favorite online games could throw at him. One day, he comes across a mysterious fantasy game that promises an adventure with no ending. While creating his character, he notices the usual difficulty options, but hidden beneath them is a secret setting called Hell Mode. The warning says it requires 100 times more experience to level up, but instead of scaring him away, it sounds like the perfect challenge. Without thinking twice, he picks Hell Mode and chooses the Summoner class. The moment he starts the game, something weird starts happening, and instead of a loading screen, he's suddenly pulled into his computer, and when he wakes up, he's no longer an adult. He's been reborn in the game as a baby named Alan. His new family is poor but loving, living in a remote village surrounded by monster-infested lands. His father, Rodden, works as a farmer and joins monster hunts during winter, while his beautiful mother, Durja, looks after their small family. Alan may have the body of a 1-year-old, but he still has the memories of his 35-year-old self. Looking back, Alan doesn't miss his previous life all that much. He had little money, few accomplishments, and no real connections, so starting over feels more exciting than tragic. Better yet, he's finally inside the impossible game he always wanted to conquer. One night, after his parents put him to bed, Alan tries to open a status screen, but nothing happens at first. But after repeatedly trying, a glowing magical book suddenly appears before him. Startled, he quickly hides it when his parents rush in, pretending to be asleep until they leave. Once the room is quiet again, he opens the floating grimoire and discovers he's officially a level 1 summoner. The book explains that he can create summon cards and use them to call creatures into the world, although leveling up in Hell Mode will be painfully slow. Alan also receives a message from Elmira, the world's creator, who apologizes for the delayed grimoire because the summoner class wasn't fully finished when he chose it. Now that it's complete, he can finally begin his journey. With no tutorial to guide him, Alan learns everything through trial and error. After several failed attempts, he finally creates an insect card and summons his very first creature, a giant grasshopper. The bug has absolutely no interest in following orders and just bounces around like it owns the place. After learning he can name his summons, Alan calls it Denka, which grants him small stat bonuses. Unfortunately, his mother spots the creepy insect, panics, and wipes it out instantly. Alan quickly realizes showing off his summons around the house is probably a terrible idea. He continues practicing in secret and eventually creates a speedy mouse-type summon. While experimenting, he discovers his creatures will obey commands once ordered to use their special abilities. He also unlocks card stacking, allowing him to carry multiple copies of the same summon to boost his own stats. By stacking mouse cards, his physical strength increases so much that he starts surprising his parents with feats no toddler should be capable of, although his actual level barely moves thanks to Hell Mode's brutal experience requirement. As time passes, Rodden joins another village hunt and helps bring down a massive great boar, a powerful C-rank monster that requires nearly 20 villagers to defeat. Seeing the beast firsthand reminds Alan just how dangerous this world really is and how far he still has to go. Eventually, his summoning and card creation skills finally reach level 2, unlocking fusion. This new ability lets him combine creatures into stronger summons while also expanding his inventory, making card stacking even more effective. Using fusion, he creates a bird capable of perfectly mimicking voices and names it Chappie. He also developed other useful summons that can dig traps or distract enemies in battle. Even though his abilities continue to improve, Alan knows he's still far too weak for real combat, so for now, all he can do is keep preparing for the challenges ahead. As time passes, Alan becomes close friends with a girl named Krina, the daughter of the villager Gerda. The two regularly spar with wooden swords, but despite being the same age, Krina's natural talent gives her the upper hand every single time. Losing to her teaches Alan an important lesson: having high stats means nothing without real skill. Not long after, Alan's family grows when his mother becomes pregnant again. During winter, a small accident caused by one of Alan's summons unexpectedly sends her into labor, but after a tense night, she safely gives birth to a healthy baby boy named Mash. Seeing his parents and little brother together gives Alan something he never had in his previous life: a real family. From that moment on, becoming stronger is no longer just about beating a difficult game. He wants the power to protect the people he loves and lift them out of poverty. Before long, Alan turns 5 and heads to the long-awaited appraisal ceremony with his father. Every child in the region attends this event, where their hidden talents are revealed. Rodden explains that a powerful talent can completely change a family's future, giving even poor villagers a chance at a better life. light. On the way, they meet Gerda and Krina, who are also attending the ceremony. As they approach the village church, Alan notices rows of well-built houses that look far nicer than the ones near his home. By the time they arrive, a huge crowd has already gathered, with everyone from nobles to ordinary villagers waiting for their turn. Soon, church officials begin the ceremony by announcing that the creator god, Elmia, blesses everyone equally, reminding the crowd that even commoners have risen to become legendary heroes and famous sword lords. Hearing those titles catches Alan's attention because they were actual class options in the game he once played. Inside the church, he also notices a statue of Elmia, the same name as the creator who had sent him a mysterious message after his reincarnation. The appraisal finally begins. Each child places a hand on a crystal, and their talents appear on a nearby metal plate. The village chief's son awakens the merchant talent, proving that even non-combat abilities are highly valued. Another child receives no talent at all and breaks down in tears, while a boy named Dagra reveals an axe user talent with an impressive attack rank A, the highest Alan has seen so far. One by one, the children finish their appraisals until it's finally Krina's turn. The instant she touches the crystal, it shines brilliantly, leaving even the church officials speechless. They announce that she has awakened the incredibly rare sword lord talent, one of the strongest classes in the world. The crowd is stunned that a poor villager's daughter possesses such an extraordinary gift, while Gerda can barely contain his pride. Ironically, Krina looks slightly disappointed since she had hoped to become an ordinary swordswoman instead. Finally, Alan steps forward, fully expecting his summoner class to appear. He places his hand on the crystal, and for a brief moment, its light flickers before fading completely. Just as everyone grows confused, the crystal suddenly erupts with an even more dazzling light than Krina's, leaving the entire church frozen in shock. The crystal's light suddenly explodes with such force that it sends Alan flying backward, leaving everyone convinced he has awakened an incredible talent. However, when the church officials read the result, they announce that he has no special talent at all. The crowd falls silent, and even Alan is confused. Checking his grimoire, he finds that every one of his attributes is ranked E, the lowest possible grade, while his own talent is displayed in a strange, almost corrupted way. Instead of panicking, Alan starts analyzing the situation. Since he's the only person playing on Hell mode, he concludes that the ranking system must work differently for him. Everyone is still level 1, so these ranks likely represent future growth rather than current strength. In other words, he'll simply have to work far harder than everyone else to unlock his true potential. Expecting disappointment, Alan is surprised when his father simply hugs him and tells him it's time to head home. Back at their small house, his family comforts him, reminding him that talent doesn't determine a person's value. Their unconditional support makes Alan realize that although they may be poor, he's far richer than he ever was in his previous life because he finally has a family that genuinely cares about him. The following day, Roden returns from a celebration held for Krina after she awakened her rare sword lord talent. During the party, he and Gerda nearly ruin the mood by arguing over whether Krina's future noble status would change their friendship. Thankfully, their wives step in before things get completely out of hand, reminding them that the two families have been close friends since childhood. The argument quickly blows over, and everyone makes peace. Not long after, news spreads that the kingdom's Knights of Order are coming to verify Krina's talent. Nearly the entire village gathers to watch. While Dagra takes the chance to mock Alan for being talentless, Krina immediately shuts him down. Soon, Captain Xenoph arrives and explains that every rare talent must be confirmed through combat because some nobles had previously faked their appraisals. Although Gerda worries about his daughter's safety, Krina confidently accepts the challenge. Holding a real sword for the first time, she charges at the vice captain with incredible skill. Despite her impressive attacks, she's eventually knocked away with a powerful kick and crashes into a wall. Just when everyone thinks it's over, she gets back up surrounded by a glowing green aura. Her speed and strength skyrocket as she completely overwhelms the vice captain before shattering his sword, forcing the match to end. With no doubts remaining, Xenoph officially confirms Krina as a genuine sword lord. He praises her extraordinary potential and predicts she could one day serve the royal family if she enters the academy at the age of 12. He even announces that once the settlement fully develops, it will be renamed in her honor. Inspired by the demonstration, Dagra declares he wants to become a knight as well, and Xenoph reveals that instructors may eventually be sent to train promising children in the village. During the visit, Xenoph also recognizes Roden as the skilled hunter famous for supplying high-quality great boar meat to a local lord. Watching his father receive praise from a royal knight fills Alan with pride. On the way home, Roden admits he hopes their hard work will someday pull the family out of poverty. Alan quietly reveals he brought home some fruit from the celebration for his mother and little brother, only for Roden to laugh and confess he did exactly the same thing. The father and son share a wholesome moment that shows just how close they've become. A few years pass, and Alan's relentless training finally pays off when his summoning skill reaches another level. Along with it, he unlocks a new ability called Enhance, giving him the power to strengthen his summoned creatures instead of simply calling them into battle. He also gains access to additional F-rank summons, expands his card inventory from 20 to 30 slots, and receives another stat bonus, making his long-term growth even better. Rather than settling for stronger summons, Alan immediately starts thinking about new fusion combinations that could make them even more powerful. That evening, he returns home to another peaceful family dinner. His mother is expecting another baby, so Alan volunteers to handle the household chores while she rests. Mash excitedly wonders whether he'll have a little brother or sister, while the family happily discusses possible names. No matter how difficult Hell Mode becomes, moments like these remind Alan exactly why he's determined to keep getting stronger. During a peaceful evening with his family, Alan notices that his mana has fully recovered, allowing him to summon again. Around the same time, he receives another message from the world's creator, Elmia. The moment he casually says that name out loud, his parents immediately panic, reminding him that Elmia is worshipped as a god in this world. Realizing he almost exposed himself, Alan quickly changes the subject. He also notices an old wound on Roden's arm healing unusually fast. Roden explains that during a recent great boar hunt, he suddenly felt a surge of energy that erased his exhaustion and pain. To Alan, it sounds suspiciously similar to leveling up, making him even more convinced that this world follows hidden game mechanics. Unfortunately, his own grimoire reminds him of a harsh truth. Despite all his training, he's still stuck at level 1 because experience only comes from defeating monsters himself. When Alan asks to join the hunters, Roden immediately refuses, insisting the job is far too dangerous for a child. Although Alan understands his father's concern, he can't help feeling frustrated since fighting monsters is the only way for him to grow stronger. Later that night, he finally reads Elmia's message. The creator apologizes for the strange appraisal results and explains that the E-rank display is simply a side effect of Hell Mode's unique system. Along with the explanation comes a detailed breakdown of his hidden stats, revealing that his mana and intelligence have grown surprisingly high. Seeing the results motivates Alan to push his training even further. He summons Denka, his grasshopper companion, and begins testing his newly unlocked enhanced skill. After boosting Denka's endurance and agility, Alan notices that he temporarily receives the same stat bonuses himself. Just as he's admiring the results, his mother walks into the room, spots the oversized grasshopper, and instinctively stomps it flat. Alan can only watch in silence, once again reminded that keeping his powers secret is much safer. The following day, while Roden heads out for another hunt, Alan continues experimenting. He discovers that enhancements applied directly to summon cards remain permanently, changing his entire strategy. Instead of conserving mana, he decides to slowly strengthen every summon in his collection. He also spends time testing different fusion combinations. After countless failed attempts, he finally creates a brand new summon called Grass. The name sounds underwhelming at first, but after checking its abilities, he realizes it boosts mana, making it far more useful than expected. He summons the tiny apple-shaped creature, names it Oppo, and activates its aroma skill. Oppo burrows into the ground and transforms into a harmless-looking plant that releases a gentle fragrance. Nothing obvious happens, leaving Alan completely confused. Right on cue, his mother notices the mysterious plant and asks where it came from, forcing him to come up with another awkward excuse. As the days pass, Alan resumes sword training with Krina. Even after all his stat boosts, he still can't beat her, although she admits he's improving much faster than before. His swordsmanship skill eventually reaches level 3, encouraging him to practice even harder. He even spends hours throwing stones at the same tree, hoping to unlock a new skill. After countless failed attempts, his little brother begs him to stop, and Alan finally gives in, remembering he still has chores waiting at home. Later that evening, the family's peaceful atmosphere is shattered when several hunters carry Roden back home, badly injured after risking his life to protect another villager during a great boar hunt. Alan notices his wounds have already been expertly treated, and Gerda explains that they used rare healing herbs purchased with the reward money Roden once received from Captain Xenov. Even so, the incident causes an uproar throughout the village, as many hunters begin arguing that commoners should no longer be allowed to join dangerous expeditions after Roden nearly lost his life trying to save one. After sending everyone else home, Gerda stays behind to watch over Roden. Later that night, Alan asks him what really happened during the hunt. Gerda explains that commoners normally never join dangerous monster hunts, but the village chief ordered them to participate. He believes the chief assumed they would be safe if they stayed close to Roden, especially after Captain Xenov praised him as a hero. Hearing this leaves Alan feeling helpless. No matter how much he trains, he still isn't strong enough to protect the people he cares about. By morning, Alan insists on watching over his father so his mother can finally rest. Not long afterward, Roden wakes up, and the emotional reunion reminds Alan that his real goal goal isn't simply becoming stronger. More than anything, he wants to keep his family safe. The next day, Alan takes over the household chores, carrying water and helping Gerda harvest potatoes. Once they're finished, the village chief arrives with the commoner whose rescue nearly cost Roden his life. The man sincerely apologizes, and Roden immediately forgives him, knowing he wasn't at fault. Although Alan admires his father's kindness, his mother is far less forgiving and gives the chief an earful for putting her husband in danger. The chief apologizes repeatedly and promises it won't happen again before the other hunters stop by to check on Roden's condition. A while later, Alan heads into a grassy field to continue training. He summons several frogs and has them use their provoke skill to lure birds toward a series of traps. After waiting for what feels like forever, a massive bird finally appears, but instead of falling into the traps, it crushes them all in seconds. Realizing he's badly outmatched, Alan prepares to retreat, but at that exact moment his level increases, allowing him to strengthen his summons even further. Encouraged by the upgrade, he decides to fight. He starts by throwing a rock to distract the monster before charging in with his wooden sword, but the attack barely scratches it. Even after summoning a pack of wolves, the bird tears through them with ease before turning its attention back to Alan. After taking a heavy hit, he suddenly realizes something important. When his summons are defeated, the stat boosts they provide disappear as well, making him weaker during battle. Knocked to the ground with the monster closing in, Alan desperately comes up with a new strategy. He summons several energy-draining leeches that latch onto the bird and steadily sap its strength. Once the creature weakens, he calls out his wolves again. This time they manage to pin it down long enough for Alan to rush in and finish the battle with a decisive sword strike. The victory rewards him with a huge amount of experience, making it the biggest achievement of his new life so far. He drags the bird back to the village, leaving everyone stunned that a child managed to hunt such a monster. To avoid revealing his abilities, Alan lies and claims he simply found it asleep. Roden notices a fresh cut on his face and becomes suspicious, but Alan brushes it off as a minor scratch. Gerda examines the monster and is clearly impressed. As they butcher it together, he explains that 60% of the meat, along with the monster's magic stone and valuable wings, must be handed over as tax. Alan immediately feels the system is unfair, especially after risking his life to earn the kill. Together they carry the monster to the village chief, where Gerda proudly announces that Roden's young son defeated it alone. He then argues that, considering Alan was the hunter, the village should only claim the feathers and allow the family to keep the rest of the meat. The village chief is surprised by Gerda's request and explains that the local baron demanded extra meat this year. Alan immediately realizes that's the real reason commoners were forced to join the dangerous hunt. The chief refuses to make an exception, but Gerda offers the monster's magic stone and feathers instead of the meat. He also reminds the chief that Roden nearly lost his life protecting one of those commoners while his own family struggles to get by. Alan quietly joins the act by pretending to be exhausted, and after a moment of hesitation, the chief finally gives in, allowing them to keep all the meat. Not long afterward, Alan returns to the hunting grounds. This time 2 giant birds appear instead of 1, but he sticks to the strategy that worked before. He weakens them with energy-draining leeches, lets his wolves wear them down, and finishes both monsters himself. The victory earns him enough experience to finally reach level 2. Although the level up doesn't unlock anything major, Alan is thrilled to see steady progress at last. When he carries both birds home, Roden is left speechless. He can't understand how a child keeps defeating monsters without suffering any serious injuries. Later, while helping process the monsters and sparring with Krina, Alan's thoughts drift elsewhere. If he keeps hunting, he'll raise his level faster, earn more food for the winter, and maybe even improve his family's future. The idea of revealing his powers to them crosses his mind, but while he's distracted, Krina quickly knocks him flat, reminding him to stay focused. That evening, Alan gathers his family around the fire and finally shares part of the truth. He explains that when he was very young, he received a vision from Elmia, who entrusted him with a special power that he must learn to use wisely. He hides the fact that he's actually a reincarnated gamer, believing no one would ever accept that story. Instead, he promises to use his abilities to help others and protect the family. His mother proudly hugs him, while Roden asks what he plans to do next. Alan confidently replies that he'll continue training and testing his powers. A year passes, and Alan is now 6 years old. Hunting monsters has become part of his routine, and even Gerda is amazed by how capable he's become. As they take monster meat to trade in town, Alan asks about the difference between villagers and commoners. Gerda explains that commoners usually live in towns and pay taxes with money instead of goods, while villagers mainly pay with food and other resources. Hearing this gives Alan a new goal. With another sibling expected soon, he wants to earn enough wealth to move his family into a better life. The pair spend the day trading meat for supplies, but Alan returns to town the following day to investigate local prices on his own. After calculating calculating the value of everything, he realizes he'd need to defeat hundreds of monsters before his family could realistically afford a higher social status. While exploring, he visits a medicine shop and asks about mana potions before bringing up the rare healing flower that saved Roden. The shopkeeper immediately recognizes the story and reveals that Gerda had begged him for that flower days earlier. Even though it cost 5 gold coins and Gerda only had 3, he pleaded until the shopkeeper finally agreed to sell it. Hearing how much Gerda sacrificed for his father deeply moves Alan, making him appreciate their friendship even more. Before leaving, he thanks the shopkeeper by giving him a piece of monster meat. As Alan continues walking through town, Dagora suddenly appears and starts picking a fight. Alan tries to ignore him, but Dagora shoves him from behind and demands that he become his servant if he wants to leave. That crosses the line. Alan calmly grabs his weapon, stares him down, and tells Dagora to draw his own if he really wants to settle things. Alan and Dagora finally settle their rivalry with a sparring match. Dagora charges in swinging a wooden club with no real technique, while Alan calmly counters with his wooden sword and defeats him without much trouble. Even after losing, Dagora glares at him, clearly refusing to let the rivalry end there. As time passes, all the village kids begin training together. Mash is now old enough to practice with Krina, while Alan continues sparring against Dagora. Even though Dagora keeps trying cheap tricks and surprise attacks, the outcome never changes, and Alan wins every time. That night, the family welcomes a new baby girl named Mila. Later, Roden and Gerda return from a meeting with troubling news. The local baron has increased the hunting quota from 10 great boars to 15. Everyone agrees the demand is unreasonable, but refusing isn't an option. Durja is especially upset after nearly losing her husband during the previous hunt. Gerda suggests hunting without the commoners, believing they'd only slow everyone down. Alan disagrees. Using the knowledge and strategy he's developed, he points out that meeting the baron's demands will only encourage him to demand even more next time. Instead, Alan proposes training the commoners properly so everyone can fight together more efficiently. His idea convinces both Roden and Gerda, and they immediately begin organizing the new hunting strategy. When they gather the commoners, Roden explains they'll be using Alan's tactics during the next hunt, although Alan himself will simply observe and study the battle. As the hunting party heads toward the mountains, Alan reflects on how much his life has changed over the past 7 years. Looking at the snow-covered peaks, he remembers the legends about a white dragon said to live there, but quickly shifts his attention back to the mission. Once everyone reaches the hunting grounds, Roden positions each group exactly as Alan planned. When a great boar charges into the trap, the frontline hunters weaken it before the support team joins in to finish the job. The strategy works perfectly, and everyone celebrates the successful hunt while thanking Alan for coming up with the plan. The following day, Alan chats with 2 hunters while helping around the village. He admits he feels frustrated sitting on the sidelines because he gains no experience if he doesn't actually participate in battle. One of the hunters mentions he no longer hunts because he became the village butcher, giving Alan a new business idea. He takes the butcher home, shows him the pile of birds he's hunted, and asks him to process the meat into smaller portions so they can trade it more efficiently. His real goal is simple: earn enough money to improve his family's future. During the next hunting trip, Alan notices even more commoners have joined the expedition. Rather than seeing them as a burden, he views them as future teammates who simply need proper training. As another great boar charges into the prepared formation, everyone works together to bring it down. After the battle, the hunters celebrate their level-ups, and Alan quickly checks his own grimoire. To his delight, he discovers he gained experience as well. The reason is surprisingly simple. Before the battle started, he had secretly summoned a tiny grasshopper. Since the charging boar crushed the summon during the fight, the system counted Alan as a participant, rewarding him with experience even though he never directly entered combat. 3 months later, Alan and Krina return home after attending a New Year's feast hosted by the village chief. For ordinary villagers like them, being invited to such an event is almost unheard of, making it clear that their standing within the village is slowly beginning to change. Returning from the village chief's New Year banquet is already a huge honor for Alan and Krina, so the family happily celebrates together at home. During dinner, Gerda asks whether the chief had anything to say about him and Roden. Alan explains that the chief was extremely pleased because the village managed to deliver all 15 great boars in only 3 months. Roden confidently says that with Alan's strategies and enough teamwork, they could probably hunt 20 next time. While talking, Gerda spots a bottle of alcohol in Alan's bag and immediately realizes it was a gift from the chief. Both he and Roden instantly want it, so Alan proposes a challenge. If either of them can beat him, they get the bottle. But if they lose, they must finally allow him to join future boar hunts. Gerda confidently accepts, only to discover the contest is arm wrestling. Thinking he'll crush a kid without effort, he grabs Alan's hand and loses almost instantly. Everyone bursts into laughter as Gerda stares at his arm in complete disbelief. Roden steps up next, and this match is far tougher. Alan struggles to keep up, realizing just how much strength his father has built through years of hard work. In the end, Roden wins fairly, and Alan happily hands over the prize. While the adults enjoy their drinks, Alan quietly tells his father he'll respect the bet for now, but one day he'll be strong enough to fight alongside everyone. A little later, Gerda gets carried away after a few drinks, and his wife quickly puts an end to his antics before things get any worse. Several months later, Alan's grimoire finally levels up again, unlocking new summon cards along with another useful ability called storage. Inside the book appears what looks like an endless black space. Curious, Alan begins tossing random objects inside and soon discovers he can mentally see everything stored within it and retrieve any item whenever he wants. The ability seems incredibly powerful for such an early level, making him wonder if there's another hidden mechanic behind it. While thinking about it during dinner, Alan looks unusually distracted. His mother notices and asks if something is bothering him, but he simply smiles and changes the subject. Later, he heads outside to test his new summons, but something goes wrong. None of his new cards will activate. After checking the grimoire, he realizes the problem isn't his mana. It says the new E-rank summons require E-rank magic gems. Luckily, he remembers collecting several gems from the birds he hunted earlier. He grabs one from his hiding place and experiments with it. Holding it against his forehead does nothing, but after placing it inside the grimoire's storage, the card finally activates. His first new summon turns out to be a butterfly. Before he can properly test it, his mother hears the noise and comes outside, forcing Alan to improvise yet another excuse. Once she's gone, he successfully summons a massive saber-toothed beast with incredibly high stats. The creature is so intimidating that Alan immediately seals it back into its card before anything goes wrong. He even tries fusing it with the butterfly, only to discover he's already used up all of his magic gems. Realizing gems are now the key to unlocking stronger summons, Alan asks Roden during dinner where he can find more. His father explains that magic gems usually come from monsters and have become much harder to obtain because hunters have collected them for years. The following day, while Krina easily defeats Dagra during training once again, Alan relaxes under a tree with Palomas and asks him about these gems. Palomas confirms that they're extremely valuable crystals found near the hearts of certain rare monsters, giving Alan a much clearer idea of what he needs to hunt next. Palomas explains that magic gems aren't only used for summoning, they're also essential for enhancing weapons, and some magical equipment won't even function without them. Surprisingly, the kingdom doesn't consider low-grade gems very valuable, so they're often scattered around the streets. To prove it, Palomas casually picks one up from the ground and hands it to Alan before walking away. Realizing these gems are much easier to obtain than he expected, Alan eagerly starts collecting as many as he can. After gathering a decent supply, he finally unlocks several new summon cards. Excited to test them, he almost activates one when he accidentally releases a hawk. His imagination immediately runs wild as he pictures himself being ambushed by a pair of great boars. In his fantasy, one summon heals his wounds, another butterfly poisons the monsters, and a massive saber-toothed beast effortlessly finishes them off. Before things get completely out of control, Alan snaps back to reality and laughs at himself, realizing none of it actually happened. Even so, the daydream reminds him just how powerful his growing army of summons could become. A few days later, Alan joins Roden and Gerda for dinner with the village chief. During the meeting, the chief reveals that the local baron plans to visit the village in a month to witness the famous great boar hunts firsthand. Since someone will need to guide the baron around, the chief surprisingly nominates Alan for the role. Everyone hesitates because of Alan's age, but he quickly realizes this could be the perfect opportunity. If he impresses the baron, his family might receive special treatment without needing to save years' worth of money. A month later, the baron finally arrives with his daughter, Cecil. During the welcoming feast, he praises the village for being the most productive settlement under his rule. He also explains that the increased hunting quota wasn't his decision but an order passed down from the king himself. While enjoying dinner, the baron asks about the delicious meat being served. Alan politely explains that it's fresh meat from a giant bird hunted the previous day. Impressed by the boy's manners, the baron asks about his family, and Alan proudly introduces himself as Roden's son. Cecil, however, looks down on him simply because he's from a village. The baron immediately scolds her, reminding her that the villagers are valuable partners who deserve respect, then tells Alan not to let her rude behavior bother him. As everyone discusses the upcoming hunt, some worry about meeting the ambitious target of 20 great boars. Alan confidently assures them his team is more than capable, unpredictable, which only makes the Baron even more eager to watch the operation. The following day, a tall observation platform is built so the Baron and his entourage can safely observe the hunt. When 3 hunters head into the forest, the Baron wonders what they're doing. Alan explains they're acting as bait, luring the boars into carefully prepared traps. Before the action begins, Captain Xenov briefly pulls Alan aside to ask how Krina has been progressing. He also mentions that she'll soon receive a proper instructor to prepare her for the academy. Moments later, the first great boar charges into the trap. Alan calmly explains each step of the strategy as it unfolds. The hunters first trap the monster using massive sheets made from durable boar hide before Rodin's team moves in to weaken it. Once the boar is pinned down, the support team rushes in with long spears to finish the job. Cecil watches in amazement, while both the Baron and Xenov are impressed that ordinary villagers can coordinate so efficiently without formal military training. Just when everyone thinks the battle is over, 2 more great boars suddenly appear. The startled Baron prepares to send in his knights, but Alan confidently stops him, trusting his team's preparations. The hunters immediately split into 2 groups. One boar is caught in another trap, while the second is surrounded through teamwork until both monsters are eventually brought down. Watching everything unfold flawlessly, the Baron assumes they still have 17 boars left to hunt. Alan politely corrects him, pointing out that today's success brings their total to 7 already, leaving only 10 more to complete the quota. After the successful hunt, the Baron thanks everyone for their efforts and offers Alan a reward. Rather than asking for money, Alan makes 2 requests. First, he asks for another set of heavy boar hide nets so the hunters can safely deal with multiple great boars at once. The Baron immediately approves. His second request is even more unexpected. He wants the villagers to be allowed to trade alcohol. Confused, the Baron asks why. Alan explains that if they can exchange monster meat for other goods like liquor, the village economy will become more stable instead of relying on meat alone. Besides, after spending all day fighting monsters, the hunters deserve something to help them relax. Impressed by his reasoning, the Baron grants that request as well. As everyone prepares to leave, Cecil once again looks down on Alan simply because of his background, but he ignores the insult and moves on. Soon afterward, the group is summoned to the Baron's residence once more. Pleased with the village's achievements, the Baron announces a special reward. From this day forward, Rodin's family will officially be recognized as commoners instead of villagers. Alan is overjoyed because this gives his family a far better future and opens doors that were previously closed. Before ending the meeting, the Baron's butler reminds him that the king wanted to know how such a small village became so successful at hunting great boars. Since Rodin finds the story difficult to tell, Gerda explains what happened years ago. When the settlers first built the village, a great boar destroyed nearly everything they had worked for. While everyone else lost hope, Rodin rallied the villagers together, and using nothing but farming tools, they managed to bring the monster down. Sadly, one of Rodin's closest friends died during that first hunt. Hearing this, the Baron finally understands why Rodin risked his own life to save another hunter. He deeply respects his courage and offers to grant him one more wish. Without hesitation, Rodin asks the Baron to give Alan a chance to work at the mansion so he can build a better future. Alan is caught completely off guard, but before he can protest, the Baron officially appoints him as a servant of the noble household. Cecil is stunned by the decision, but the Baron reminds her that Alan is now a recognized commoner and fully deserves the opportunity. Back home, the news brings both happiness and sadness. Alan's mother struggles to hold back her tears, knowing her son will be leaving home. Krina and the rest of the villagers also come to say goodbye. Before departing, Alan asks Krina for one final sparring match. The two exchange blows with wooden swords, and everyone watching can immediately tell how much stronger Alan has become. Thanks to the many stat boosts from his summons, his speed has increased dramatically. Their duel remains evenly matched until Alan finally manages to place his sword at Krina's neck. Even then, he smiles and calls it a draw, promising they'll have another rematch someday. Krina happily accepts. As Alan prepares to leave, his family gives him emotional farewells. Mash wishes him luck, while his mother hugs him one last time. Just before the carriage departs, Dagara and Palomis awkwardly approach. After being shoved forward by Palomis, the embarrassed Dagara silently hands Alan a golden knife as a farewell gift before immediately running off, tripping over himself in the process and making everyone laugh. Alan finally sets off with his parents toward the Baron's estate. Rodin reminds him that becoming a servant is only the first step and encourages him to keep aiming higher. After an emotional goodbye, Alan climbs into the carriage and watches his parents disappear into the distance. Upon arriving at the Baron's mansion, Alan is stunned by its incredible size and luxury. tree. He barely has time to admire it before Cecil puts him to work, making him help her pick fruit from a tall tree by acting as a human ladder. Even after getting the fruit, she complains about its taste and orders him to buy something better from the market instead. While heading out, Alan notices an enormous ship floating high in the sky. Completely amazed, he asks Cecil about it. She explains that it's a magical airship, a common sight among nobles, and smugly points out that someone from a small village wouldn't know such things. The next morning, Alan wakes up in his small servant's room. It may not look impressive, but he doesn't mind because he's secretly growing special plants there that provide useful stat boosts. After heading downstairs, he meets the head servant, Rickle, who explains how the mansion's servant hierarchy works. High-ranking servants include butlers, housekeepers, valets, ladies-in-waiting, and head chefs, while coachmen, gardeners, cooks, and manservants like Alan occupy the lower ranks. Hearing this makes Alan understand why his father had been so proud when he earned this position. During breakfast, the Baron's wife compliments Alan's polite behavior, while the Baron praises his hardworking nature despite his lack of natural talent. Cecil proudly boasts about her 2-star wizard talent and mentions that her older brother, Mihai, possesses a swordsman talent. Unfortunately, she also points out that another family member, Thomas, has no talent at all, earning an immediate scolding from the Baron for being insensitive. Later that day, Alan uses his free time to explore the nearby town. Compared to his old village, everything feels much larger and more lively. His curiosity eventually leads him to the Adventurers Guild, where he asks about becoming an adventurer. He's quickly told that the minimum age is 12, leaving him disappointed but not discouraged. Instead, he studies the guild's bounty board, learning about rewards from monsters like horned rabbit, goblins, giant toads, and other dangerous creatures. One experienced adventurer briefly explains how monster rankings work. The farther a monster lives from civilization, the stronger it usually is, while the deadliest creatures inhabit the region around White Dragon Mountain. Alan quietly memorizes everything before leaving without attracting unnecessary attention. On his next day off, he uses the Baron's permission to leave town and ventures deep into the nearby forest. After traveling several kilometers, he summons his intelligent hawk, Hawkins, whose high intelligence allows it to understand complex commands. Alan sends multiple hawks into the sky to scout using their Hawkeye ability while testing another summon named Tama. Unfortunately, Tama's low intelligence makes following orders a bit of a challenge. Before long, Hawkins locates a group of goblins. Alan surrounds them with several Tamas and begins the battle. When the fight starts getting messy, he summons his butterfly companion, which successfully puts the goblins to sleep with its special ability. Taking advantage of the opening, Alan defeats the monsters and collects their valuable magic stones. He spends the rest of the day hunting goblins and horned rabbits, steadily gathering experience while learning more about his summons. By the end of the trip, he discovers that the butterfly's sleep ability works most of the time. His hawks struggle to navigate in darkness, and higher-ranked magic stones can't simply be used for lower-ranked summons. Although finding his way home after sunset proves difficult, he eventually returns safely. A month later, Alan invests 60 silver coins in several iron-throwing balls to improve his long-range attacks. After countless hunting trips, he has already reached level 12, choosing to repeatedly farm weaker monsters for experience, supplies, and magic stones instead of taking unnecessary risks. Eventually, the Baron grows curious about how Alan spends every day off. Rather than making up another excuse, Alan simply admits that he has been using his free time to hunt monsters outside the town walls. Alan explains to the Baron that hunting runs in his family since he's the son of the famous boar hunter, Roden. The Baron accepts the explanation, while the head butler advises Alan not to sell his rabbit meat to random merchants because it could affect the household's reputation. Instead, the mansion offers to buy everything he catches for 1 silver coin per bundle. Happy with the arrangement, Alan realizes he can now earn money while continuing to level up. Over the next 6 months, Alan keeps hunting regularly. During one expedition, his hawks suddenly fly far beyond their normal scouting range and lead him to an unexpected scene. Raven's adventuring party is surrounded by goblins, with Raven badly wounded and the others barely holding on. Without hesitation, Alan jumps into the fight. He hurls heavy iron balls to disrupt the goblins before charging in with his knife. Thanks to the massive stat boosts from his summons, he easily cuts through the D-rank monsters without revealing his actual summoning abilities. Once the battle is over, Alan realizes Raven won't survive the trip back to town. Left with no choice, he pulls out one of his rare Leaf of Life items, created through his summons, and heals Raven instantly. He also saves another injured injured adventurer named Rita. The group is stunned by the item's incredible power, so Alan asks them to keep both his identity and abilities a secret. In return, he only requests 100 E-rank magic stones, something the adventurers can gather much more easily than he can. They happily agree. Afterward, Alan reflects on everything he learned. The Leaf of Life restores a fixed amount of health, making it much stronger than ordinary healing herbs. He also notices that experience gained in party battles works differently than he originally expected. More importantly, he realizes Hawkins deliberately ignored his orders to rescue the adventurers. Instead of being upset, Alan is relieved to know his summons can think and make compassionate decisions on their own. Sometime later, the Baron's family is enjoying a meal, but instead of the usual great boar meat, they're eating rabbit caught by Alan. Captain Xenoph praises him, saying he's truly living up to Roden's reputation. Although the village successfully completed its 20 boar quota, almost none of that meat remains because most of it has been sent to the royal capital for the king. During dinner, Thomas jokingly says he'd love to try white deer meat someday. Cecil immediately reminds everyone that Alan is her servant, while the Baron's wife laughs, doubting he could ever hunt such a dangerous creature. Alan quietly accepts the challenge without saying a word. Soon afterward, he heads into the mountains and prepares an elaborate trap. Using his hopper summons as bait, he slowly guides the enormous white deer toward a deep pit. The monster easily overpowers other creatures along the way, proving just how dangerous it is, but Alan patiently sticks to his plan. Once the deer falls into the trap, he finishes it off with his knife after wearing it down. Dragging the massive white deer back to the mansion causes complete chaos, with people initially believing a monster has invaded the estate. When everyone discovers Alan hunted it himself as a gift for Thomas, they're left speechless. Thomas is thrilled, while Alan quietly checks his rewards and realizes the hunt gave far less experience than expected. Alan's successful hunt leaves the Baron stunned. An 8-year-old with no recognized talent had just defeated a C-rank monster, making him wonder whether Alan's original appraisal had been completely wrong. Not long afterward, the butler calls Alan in and announces that he's being promoted to the mansion's official huntsman. His new duties include hunting monsters for the household and protecting the surrounding area, earning him a steady salary of 100 silver coins each month. Alan quickly realizes the Baron is getting a bargain since a single white deer is worth far more than that, but he gladly accepts because it guarantees him more hunting opportunities. The only catch is that he must still serve as Cecil's personal attendant, meaning he can only perform huntsman duties once a week. Sometime later, a magical airship arrives carrying Cecil's older brother, Mihai, home from the academy. Alan helps carry his luggage and is introduced as both Cecil's attendant and the family's huntsman. Mihai is surprised that someone so young already holds two important roles. Soon afterward, Mihai has a friendly sparring match with Captain Xenoph, showing just how much stronger he's become after a year at the academy. Watching the duel motivates Alan, and before long, Mihai challenges him as well. With the Baron's permission, Xenoph lends Alan his sword for the match. Having climbed from level 13 to level 20 through constant hunting, Alan feels confident going in. His speed has improved dramatically, but Mihai's refined swordsmanship proves to be on another level. Despite putting up a solid fight, Alan is eventually defeated. Rather than mocking him, Mihai praises his impressive strength, while everyone else recognizes how much the academy has improved Mihai's abilities. After Mihai returns to school, life settles down until Viscount Carnell pays the estate a visit. It's immediately obvious that he and the Baron don't get along. As the ruler of the territory beyond White Dragon Mountain, Carnell holds a higher noble rank and has influence over hunting policies. During dinner, Carnell compliments the delicious meat without realizing he's actually eating rabbit instead of great boar. Later, Rickle explains the reason behind the nobles' rivalry. White Dragon Mountain contains incredibly valuable mines, but a powerful white dragon nests on one side of the mountain, blocking access. Every 100 years, the dragon changes territories, shifting both wealth and influence between the neighboring lords. Their long-standing feud has been fueled by this cycle for generations. Time passes, and Alan celebrates his 9th birthday. By now, he's already defeated thousands of goblins, making D-rank monsters almost worthless for experience. Determined to keep growing stronger, he visits the Adventurers Guild to gather information about C-rank monsters. Even though experienced adventurers warn him how dangerous they are, Alan upgrades his equipment with lighter armor and heads out anyway. His enhanced skill has reached level 5, greatly increasing the stat boosts from his summons. Before long, he successfully ambushes a C-rank orc, overwhelming it with core coordinated summons before delivering the finishing blow himself. The battle rewards him with valuable experience and another magic stone. Feeling confident, he targets a C-rank armored ant next. This opponent is much tougher, as its hardened shell easily withstands his knife. Although Alan eventually defeats it through careful planning, he can't recover its magic stone, making him realize his current weapons still aren't strong enough for heavily armored enemies. While reviewing his stats afterward, Alan notices his intelligence has become unusually high. That raises an important question. Could he finally learn magic? With Cecil's help, he arranges for a professor to examine him as a birthday request. Unfortunately, after testing him with a magic crystal, the professor confirms that Alan has absolutely no talent for magic and is incapable of casting spells. The result is a huge disappointment. Despite possessing exceptional intelligence, he's completely unable to use magic, leaving him wondering why his summoner class works so differently from everyone else's. Not long afterward, while the Baron's family is peacefully enjoying dinner together, an emergency alarm suddenly echoes throughout the city as news arrives that a terrifying murder gale monster is heading straight toward the walls. The Baron immediately prepares the town's defenses and asks for Captain Xenoph, only to learn that he and his troops are away on another mission and won't return for 2 days. With no military support available, the Baron orders the Adventurers Guild to assist while the townspeople begin evacuating. Seeing the panic, Alan decides he has to act. Cecil desperately tries to stop him, reminding him that he's her servant, but Alan calmly replies that he's also the family's huntsman, and protecting the town is part of his responsibility. As the city gates prepare to close, a frantic man arrives, crying that his wife and daughter are trapped outside in a carriage. Alan looks beyond the walls and sees the horrifying scene. A massive murder gale is tearing apart the horses while the family is helplessly trapped. Without hesitating, Alan throws one of his heavy iron balls, striking the monster in the eye and successfully grabbing its attention. The guards are stunned to see a child provoking a B-rank monster, but Alan ignores their warnings and sprints away from the city, leading the creature toward White Dragon Mountain instead. While fleeing, he summons several butterflies in an attempt to put the monster to sleep, but the attack has no effect against such a powerful enemy. With no way to defeat it, Alan focuses entirely on survival, keeping the monster occupied and away from the town. The desperate chase lasts 3 exhausting days before Alan finally loses the creature and staggers back to the city completely drained. He collapses near the gate but is caught by a guard before hitting the ground. When he wakes up, Cecil is sitting beside him. She's relieved he's alive but can't hide how worried she was. Alan explains that he simply kept running until he managed to escape. Later, he reports everything to the Baron, admitting he couldn't defeat the monster and only succeeded in drawing it away from the city. Rather than criticizing him, the Baron praises his courage, recognizing that his actions likely saved countless lives. As a reward, the Baron gives Alan 10 gold coins, while the grateful family he rescued presents him with another 10. Using the reward money, Alan purchases a much stronger sword. The upgrade immediately proves worthwhile during his next hunt, allowing him to easily defeat the heavily armored ant monster that his old blade couldn't even scratch. Afterward, Alan continues experimenting with his summons. He hides different objects inside a bag and tests whether his creatures can identify them. Through these experiments, he discovers that newly created summons inherit knowledge from others of the same type, although different species can't share information. Even more surprisingly, the knowledge survives after a summon dies, meaning future summons of the same type gradually become smarter with each generation. Time passes, and Alan celebrates his 9th birthday. When Mihai returns home from the academy, the two once again settle things with a sparring match. Even after fighting countless monsters and growing much stronger, Alan still can't overcome Mihai's superior swordsmanship. Mihai knocks his sword aside and claims another victory, but he also compliments Alan's incredible improvement and says he's glad someone so capable is protecting Cecil. Later, while everyone is gathered together, Mihai hears about Alan's encounter with the murder gale and is genuinely impressed that he survived. Even he admits that defeating a B-rank monster alone would be nearly impossible. Their conversation is interrupted by exciting news. The legendary White Dragon has finally left White Dragon Mountain. Since the dragon's presence had prevented mining operations for years, the announcement fills the Baron with hope. With the mines finally accessible again, he believes the territory's prosperity may soon return. Although the White Dragon has left the mountain, the area is still extremely dangerous. Powerful monsters continue to roam the region, and there's always the chance the dragon could return at any time. Even so, Alan heads there alone, determined to grow stronger before the mining operation begins. While reviewing his grimoire, he notices a brand new ability called Share. Curious, he links himself to one of his hawks and is amazed when he can suddenly see, hear, and even control the bird from afar. After more testing, he discovers he can connect with up to 5 summons at once, although trying to manage too many quickly overwhelms his mind. Realizing how useful this ability is, Alan completely changes his hunting strategy. Different summons take on different roles. Some trap enemies with webs, others break heavy armor, some provide defensive buffs, while another transforms into a plant that restores his mana. With enough coordination, his summons can now hunt monsters almost entirely on their own, allowing Alan to earn experience while staying out of danger. The only rule he gives them is simple: never attack adventurers unless absolutely necessary. Alan also uses Share for something much more personal. Through one of his birds, he secretly visits his old village from afar. He quietly watches his father working in the fields, checks on his mother and little sister, and feels relieved to see everyone safe. Before ending the connection, he secretly drops a gold coin near their house, silently promising to continue helping his family from the shadows. Meanwhile, the Baron decides it's finally time to reopen the mines before outsiders rush in and claim the opportunity first. Since previous mining expeditions failed because of dangerous monsters and extreme conditions, he orders the work to begin in safer areas while Captain Xenov's soldiers provide protection. Alan couldn't be happier. After months of waiting, the mining operation gives him another perfect chance to gain experience. As goblins attack the workers, he sends his bear summons into battle, and they quickly wipe out the monsters. A goblin boss soon appears, but Alan defeats it without much trouble, earning another large burst of experience. As another year begins, Mihai returns home from the academy, making Cecil especially happy. Alan immediately challenges him to another sparring match, convinced that years of hunting and countless new summons have finally closed the gap between them. The duel starts well for Alan, but Mihai's superior technique and academy training eventually turn the tide. Once again, Alan is forced to admit defeat. Later, the Baron proudly praises Mihai's progress, but the cheerful atmosphere doesn't last. Mihai quietly reveals that he's been assigned to noble military duties and may not be able to return home again. Cecil is heartbroken by the news, while Mihai does his best to comfort her. Before leaving, he asks Alan to continue protecting his sister in his absence. Time passes, and Alan reaches the age of 10. By now, he commands an enormous army of summons. During one expedition, he successfully wipes out an orc unit, only to attract the attention of an even larger force. The battle quickly escalates as orc mages join the fight, forcing Alan to summon more and more creatures just to keep up. Things become even worse when an orc messenger alerts the orc king, who marches toward the battlefield with a massive army. Even with all of his summons fighting together, Alan begins losing against the overwhelming enemy. At the last possible moment, Captain Xenov arrives with reinforcements. Alan immediately recalls many of his summons to avoid exposing his full abilities. Xenov calmly takes on the orc king himself, while the vice captain cuts through the rest of the army. With a single decisive strike, Xenov defeats the orc king and ends the battle. That night, while Alan treats Xenov's wounds, the captain admits he has suspected for quite some time that Alan possesses unusual powers. His doubts began after the goblin boss incident and were confirmed during the battle against the orc king. However, Xenov incorrectly assumes Alan is using magic stones to control beasts rather than possessing a unique summoning ability. Seeing no reason to reveal the truth, Alan simply lets him believe it. Xenov also reveals that the Baron recognized Alan's potential long ago, which is why he entrusted him with the role of huntsman. Realizing they both share the same goal of protecting the territory, the two begin working together more closely. Over the following weeks, they relentlessly hunt down orcs to make the surrounding region safer. Back at the mansion, however, devastating news arrives. A royal messenger delivers a letter announcing that Mihai has been assigned to fight in a war where survival is far from guaranteed. The Baron argues that Mihai is still too young, but the messenger explains that noble duty cannot be refused. As the reality sinks in, the entire household falls silent, and despite Cecil and Thomas desperately searching for hope, no one can promise that Mihai will ever return home. Sometime later, while Alan is having a meal with the head servant and discussing the tense situation surrounding Mihai, alarming news spreads through the mansion. Cecil has disappeared. The entire household immediately begins searching for her, and Alan rushes out as well, determined to find her before something terrible happens. As night falls, he finally discovers Cecil wandering alone along a quiet road. Exhausted and hungry, she sits by herself, unable to stop thinking about her brother being sent to war. Alan doesn't lecture her or force her to return. Instead, he quietly offers her some bread and fruit. Hunger wins almost instantly, and Cecil happily starts eating. While they talk, Cecil asks whether Mihai is truly strong enough to survive the battlefield. Alan reassures her that her brother is one of the strongest people he knows and has trained tirelessly for years. Even so, Cecil admits she doesn't want to go back home. Alan responds by by talking about his own dream of becoming an adventurer one day and traveling the world freely. He tells her that everyone should choose their own path instead of running from their fears. His words finally reach her, and she decides to return. Alan carries the exhausted Cecil all the way back to the mansion. Instead of scolding her, the Baron immediately embraces his daughter, relieved that she's safe. He promises that once the mining project succeeds, he'll do everything he can to free her from the burdens of noble obligations. Life soon returns to normal, and Alan continues growing stronger through constant hunting. Before long, he's powerful enough to defeat an Orc King entirely on his own. At the same time, Captain Xenoph reports that the mining operation is steadily expanding deeper into the mountain. During another expedition, Alan climbs higher than ever before and discovers what appears to be the main nest of a gigantic ant colony. Seeing an opportunity for massive experience, he unleashes his bear summons, but waves of ants pour out endlessly to defend their home. The battle drags on for weeks. No matter how many ants he defeats, more continue appearing. Eventually, Alan notices something strange. The bodies of the fallen ants keep disappearing. He realizes the ant queen is likely recycling them to produce even more offspring, explaining why the colony never seems to shrink. Determined to end it once and for all, Alan continues the assault. After nearly 2 months of non-stop fighting and more than 5,000 defeated ants, the colony finally begins to collapse. He sends his birds ahead to map the enormous underground maze before locating the queen's chamber deep inside the nest. Once he reaches the queen, Alan orders all of his bear summons to attack together. Focusing on the queen's weaker lower body, they eventually bring her down after a fierce battle. The victory rewards Alan with an enormous amount of experience, making it one of the biggest level gains of his journey so far. Alan carries proof of the queen's defeat back to the mansion, leaving everyone speechless. Even the Baron struggles to believe a young boy accomplished something so incredible. As a reward, he grants Alan a 30% share of the future mining profits. Alan doesn't immediately understand how valuable that is until the butler explains that the mine could eventually make him incredibly wealthy. Not long afterward, a royal messenger arrives with troubling news. A neighboring territory is claiming partial ownership of the mine and demands that all future profits be split equally. The Baron immediately refuses, pointing out that he has already promised a large share to Alan. Realizing the dispute can only be settled by the king himself, he decides to travel to the capital as soon as Captain Xenoph returns. While the adults deal with politics, Alan goes back to his usual duties. Suddenly, he hears Cecil screaming and rushes toward the sound. When he arrives, he finds 3 adventurers attempting to kidnap her. Alan attacks immediately, but the kidnappers are far stronger than expected. During the struggle, they throw a smoke bomb, and Alan loses consciousness. When he finally wakes up, he discovers that both he and Cecil have been captured. Relieved to see that she's still unharmed, Alan quietly activates one of his bird summons without needing to move, sending it out to scout the area while the kidnappers remain completely unaware. Using one of his bird summons, Alan scouts the area and discovers that he and Cecil are being held aboard a flying airship. Even worse, he learns the royal messenger is the mastermind behind the kidnapping. It quickly becomes clear that Cecil is being used as a hostage to force the Baron into surrendering control of the mine. Alan quietly summons a butterfly that puts the nearby guards to sleep. When one of the adventurers destroys the butterfly, the distraction gives him just enough time to break free. He immediately stands in front of Cecil and prepares to fight. The kidnappers rush him, but they underestimate his strength. Alan calls out several summons, overwhelming the enemies long enough to create an escape route. Just as they're about to get away, the group's leader, Dagra, appears and sends Alan flying with a powerful kick. Realizing he can't win a direct fight, Alan changes tactics. A pigeon summon distracts Dagra for a split second, allowing one of Alan's spiders to attack. Using the opening, he grabs Cecil and runs instead of risking a battle he isn't sure he can win. While escaping, Alan notices the airship isn't flying very high. He tells Cecil to hold on tightly before jumping off the ship. The landing hurts, but he hides the pain and immediately urges her to keep moving. Using owl summons to monitor Dagra's movements, Alan carries Cecil through narrow streets while searching for a safe route. He soon discovers that Dagra is using tracking magic to follow their footprint. To counter it, Alan begins traveling across rooftops and even uses his summons as stepping stones whenever possible, leaving almost no trail behind. Cecil wonders why he's avoiding a fight despite being strong enough to defeat monsters, and Alan explains that fighting an unknown opponent while protecting someone else is a risk he can't afford to take. For the next several days, the pair continue moving toward the kingdom's border. Every morning, Alan checks Dogra's location through his bird summons and constantly changes routes to stay ahead. Even after reaching friendly territory, he realizes the pursuit hasn't ended. While crossing a forest, they suddenly run into the same murder gale monster Alan encountered years earlier. The beast immediately recognizes him and attacks. Knowing escape is impossible this time, Alan hides Cecil in a safe place and faces the monster himself. He unleashes wave after wave of summons, but the creature tears through them and eventually grabs him. Even after swallowing him whole, Alan refuses to give up. Reinforcing himself with countless stat boosts, he survives long enough to stab the monster directly through the eye from the inside, finally killing it and earning a huge amount of experience. Unfortunately, Dogra catches up moments later. Alan is already exhausted and struggles to keep up with the relentless attacks. Just as he's about to be overwhelmed, Cecil unexpectedly casts a spell to help him. While Alan buys time, a pigeon summon he secretly dispatched earlier finally reaches Captain Xenoph. Xenoph arrives just in time. Dogra immediately realizes he's facing someone far beyond his level, and with a single strike, Xenoph ends the battle. With the danger finally over, Alan escorts Cecil safely back to the mansion. After hearing the full story, Alan concludes that the kidnapping was orchestrated to seize control of the mining operation. The Baron considers accusing those responsible directly, but Alan suggests creating a duplicate mining contract to lure the conspirators into exposing themselves first. The plan works perfectly. The investigation clears the Baron's name and even earns him a promotion in noble rank. Sometime later, Alan and Cecil learn more about the world's history. They discover that a century earlier, powerful demons invaded the continent, forcing multiple kingdoms to unite and establish military academies. Talented nobles are required to serve on the front lines for several years, a responsibility known as noble duty. Realizing this is the mission that claimed her brother's life leaves Cecil heartbroken. As a final reward for rescuing Cecil and protecting the territory, the Baron offers Alan the chance to officially become an adventurer. He also asks him to continue serving as Cecil's personal bodyguard. Alan agrees, but requests that part of his reward be used to improve his family's status and support the families who helped him growing up. He also asks to be released from service once his duties are complete. The Baron accepts every request, presents Alan with a special sword, and promises that his household will always support him. With that, Alan officially becomes a trusted ally of the noble family, bringing the first season of his journey to a satisfying conclusion.